once you have a baby, your DNA is permanently altered. And so now you're biologically focused on keeping, your little infant that then becomes toddler and so on, happy, healthy, thriving. And so, of course, you're not going to be able to do all of the other things in the way that you did them before. I don't want to say not as well, because I honestly think you actually have the opportunity to do things even more productively and efficiently because you get better at time management and you get better at prioritizing. But I think what falls to the wayside is us, mothers.
100%. I think we lose ourselves in that.
Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is a Mother podcast.
We are two toddler boy moms that have been best friends since college, and we are here to share our unique motherhood journeys through a comparative lens.
And we all say we're not supposed to compare, right? But clearly we know that's not realistic.
Because the first few years of motherhood shook our lives and friendship like no other experience has.
And by comparing and contrasting our journeys, we've discovered the strongest threads of sisterhood yet.
We don't have all the answers, and we sure have made some missteps.
So we invite you to follow along as we do our best to nurture our friendship while making 1,000 tiny mama decisions in an unfair world.
Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is a Mother podcast.
Today, we are going to be talking about fourth trimester is a mother. Because it was. I can't really say it is, although I guess, how would we define the fourth trimester?
That's a good question. Definitely after the little kid is here. And then I guess how far out is considered the fourth trimester?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I may still be in it. And he's 3.
I feel like that too. I mean, I don't know if there's a biological definition, but I have been thinking about all of the stages since when Everett was born until now, which has only been 4 years. And I definitely did feel a lot different right after he was born. But yeah, maybe we'll get to that. But where we left off last time, and forgive us, y'all, we're just figuring this podcasting stuff out with our audio and
yes, we
editing.
are.
But we're doing it. Last time we talked about getting pregnant and, I guess finding our partner and then getting pregnant later in life because we were focused on our careers, which is actually an important part of how our fourth trimester went, is that we were so career driven. We talked about our alignment with our crazy alignment always, about how we just kind of step through all of these phases of our life together. We found our partners later, we got pregnant later, but all that, I would say, was hunky-dory.
I agree. I think it really got real once we had the babies, once we had to return to work, once we had to figure out our new normals, once we figured out how to allow our spouses to, I don't want to say co-parent, but...
I was about to say, I think we're still figuring that out.
True statement.
At least I am.
Me too, girl. I would classify both of us as alpha females, where we're assertive and we know what we want. And sometimes we don't always know how to allow others to help, right? If we're just keeping it real. So I think trying to figure out how to be a mom while creating space for the dads to be first-time dads, it was just a lot. There was a lot of emotion at play. Can I tell you what John told me when I was nervous to bring LJ home? I was like, we have this kid. I don't know what to do with him. We bring him home and then what? Legit conversation. I'm like, I was so nervous to bring him home. I didn't know what to do. John's words, which are funny, but it took the pressure off. He said, just don't kill him.
I mean, yeah, when you boil it down.
And he was saying it in a joking kind of way, but I thought it took the pressure off because I'm like, we will figure this out. And so it was said in jest, but it took some of the pressure off of me as a new mommy.
Yeah, definitely. And that's so normal, I think, for new moms to feel like they're going to break their children. Every little fever or hiccup or bout of fussiness, you're like, I did break it. I broke the kid. I broke the baby.
Meanwhile, the baby's fine. The baby's like, I'm good. I'll add another component to the fourth trimester that I know that both of us we're working through it. We may still be working through it. Maybe not as much now. For me, it was also creating space for my mom and dad to be grandparents. I do appreciate that my parents said, this is you and John. Like, this is our grandbaby. We want you guys to be able to parent in a way that feels good to you all. And we're going to, specifically my mom, not try to overstep my boundaries. And so she did a great job. I know it's a struggle because Maxine, wants to be in the place and give her 2 cents. But I love the fact that she specifically, my dad's always chilled out and laid back. You know how he is. My mom, who wants to be the mom and the grandma, she had to find her place too. Mm-hmm. How to keep parenting me and be a grandparent without overstepping boundaries to someone that's very assertive, me.
Yeah, and that actually makes me feel good to hear you remind me of that, because I feel like I look to you a lot as an example of how to build your support network and to accept help and to let go and like get time to yourself. We might be jumping ahead here, but I know we are still struggling with that. We still feel very much like we're on an island and we're in this modern era of parenting, which is unsustainable. And even sometimes we look at other parents and other families who have built a support network like yours, or even way more robust than yours. And we're like, oh, like almost like throwing shade, like, oh, really? Like, why, why are you letting all these other people into this? And then it's like, well, damn, that's why you're probably well rested. Damn, that's probably why you got a weekend away. But to your point about your mom and all of the older generation, they were from a different time. They raised their kids in a different way. And this is even coming up. And I want to say not even with just our parents' generation, but even like my sister's generation, which, her kids are now in high school. And I want to say, they even parented a lot different. So that was a real thing. But going back to right when the babies came out and we were afraid to break them, I feel like Brett and I had a good 4th trimester between the two of us because we had done a lot of like prep work, of our birth classes and all that. And he was very much primed for, in those first several weeks, mom takes care of the baby, you take care of mom. So I think a lot of dads are like, let me hold the baby, let me do this, let me do that. And Brett was like, I will wait to be instructed to do anything and I will just keep you fed. So, he and I had a good dynamic, but bringing other people in, as I'm sure you recall when you came to visit my brand new baby. And I was like, you're going to be the first one to give him a bottle and put him down at night. And I was a little psychotic about it. Was I not?
A little is cute. Yeah, you had a whole moment, baby. But it was cool because I have to tell y'all, PB, just like she said, was like, you're going to be the first person to give him a bottle. And I felt honored. I'm like, I'm here to meet my nephew. Like, let's do it. I'm here to support. I remember vividly, Brett was sitting on the couch. We were sitting on the couch. Y'all, PB was prepping us on how to give Everett the bottle because neither one of us apparently had given a baby a bottle, but I digress. And so she's like, the bottle has to be at 45 degrees and it needs to be, you got to sneak in, give it to him and sneak out because we can't wake him up. This is what did you call it? The ghost feeding? What was the term you used when you sneak in?
The sleep feed, the dream feed,
dream feed.
Because they're still asleep.
So she had this whole, I can't even get it out, a whole breakdown when we were going to go in there. So we went in there, we did the dream feed. Everett was fine. Everett was good to go. And we were able to leave the room before Everett woke up. But y'all should have seen your girl PV. No, it has to be like this. It has to be like that. And it has to be. Yeah, it was fine.
Is this when you had to pull me aside and be like, go apologize to your husband and give him a kiss?
That's exactly what it was. Brett was sitting there like, I don't know what to do. And so we went in the kitchen, remember? And I was like, PV, baby, go in there. I'm going to stay in the kitchen. Have your moment. Go in there. Give Brett a kiss. Give him a hug. Tell him you love him. You appreciate him. Because I know he was feeling out of place. He didn't know how to support you in that moment. You were feeling out of place because you're like, y'all better not wake my damn baby up. And I was sitting there like, I'm just here to help. What do you need from me? But you know what, P? What I appreciate, you were like, okay, yeah, okay. I had a moment. And you went out there and you gave Brett a kiss and hugged him and y'all were fine. But we've all had those moments that you freak out. I remember John was rocking LJ, okay, in the rocking chair, trying to give him the bottle. It was really sweet, except that I had read in some blog, probably, I don't know where I got the blog from, but it said, don't rock the baby when you're giving the baby milk. It could do something. Girl, I don't know. I read something. It was probably early in the morning. So poor John and his new daddy duties was so cute. And he was just rocking LJ with the little breast milk in a bottle. I was like, you're not supposed to rock the baby. I read it in a blog. You're not supposed to rock the baby. It's going to mess up his digestive system. And John's like, you could see it on his face like,
oh my God.
It's my child too. So
yeah.
New mommyhood. You don't know what to do. You're trying your best. And dads are trying their best, or your partners, not just dad, but your partners are trying to do their best to support. Also, it's a whole thing.
And I will say this every step of the way, because I feel that I have a million examples, even from the recent history. But I remember vividly this, I think Everett was 3 weeks old. We had stupidly taken him to my in-laws because it was one of Brett's cousins was having a baby shower. We wanted to be a part of it, and everyone was going to meet the baby for the first time. Well, Everett was a tad undercooked. I mean, he came out 3 weeks early, which he was totally healthy and fine. But he had a little trouble eating, and he had some digestive stuff, which is totally normal, even for cooked and overcooked babies. But he was very fussy. And that trip, he was so fussy, and he was like shitting everywhere all the time, and he was up all night. And I was a mess. I was such a mess. And I will, like, this moment is seared into my brain where I had just come out of the bedroom, which my in-laws were giving us time to like figure out what the hell we were doing, which clearly we didn't know. We were literally like throwing the baby to each other, trying to get him to like in a comfortable position to get help with his like indigestion or bubbles or whatever it was. And I came out, and she was standing there, and she was just like this quiet presence. And she gave me this long hug, and she was like, it's going to be okay. You're doing great. You're such a good mom. And I was just like a puddle in her arms. And yeah, I mean, that was so powerful and supportive in that moment. And like I said, there's a million more moments since then where you just need people to say, it's not going perfect right now, but you're doing a good job.
100%. But you're right. I think it starts with your support system too. You know, it starts there.
Yeah. And I actually want to talk about that because like once these babies popped out, this is kind of where we have had some differences in our life, and building that support network in your fourth trimester was one of them. And so for me, we had some help, minimal. Like my mom came, I can't even remember how many days, for a few days. My sister came for a few days. My brother-in-law came for a few days, and bless their souls, they came individually so that we would have like help sprinkled throughout that first couple months. And then especially when I went back to work, as every new mom is, you're just petrified to leave your baby with anyone else than yourself, even your husband, as we have just gone through. But even, it's even scary leaving them with your family members who would put their lives in front of their own, but let alone a stranger. So I wasn't quite ready. And I had this great situation. It was right next to my job that we had an in-home daycare situation. And it was this wonderful woman. It was only 4 little babies in her home. Like I literally felt like I was dropping him off at like an aunt's house kind of thing. But even still, I was very sad and nervous to do that. And so my mother-in-law and my mom, and actually my friend Jen, who, people just step up when you need them. Jen she doesn't want kids. She's not very maternal, even though she's great with kids. But like babies too, she had not really been around babies a lot. And she's like, I'm going to come for a week and watch your baby so you don't have to send him. And I'm like, you are? She's like, yeah. She drove up all by herself from San Diego. She did it was just amazing. And he did great. She did great. It actually gave me a lot of confidence to then go ahead and put him in the in-home daycare when I had to, which was, he was like 4.5 months. But anyway, so as you can see, I'm not giving you the full picture, but it was very piecemeal. It was very much like we have a little bit of help there, a little bit of help there, here. And Brett had only the 6 weeks of California state mandated parental leave that was 60% pay. So you could spread out that 6 weeks throughout the whole year. So he did like 2 weeks, I think, at first, and then he sprinkled 2 weeks at another part of the year, 2 weeks another part. But it was tough, and it's still tough for us because we don't have family in Santa Barbara where we live. And we have to parent a lot on our own. We don't get a lot of breaks. It was especially hard in that really the beginning part of the fourth trimester. And you didn't do it that way, which I am very grateful for you and for your parents that you had a different situation, because I think it, especially, and we'll get to our stories, but especially what happened with our returning to work, how could you have navigated that without your parents?
Oh boy, the Beals. First of all, you were talking about Jen and I smiled. Jen is amazing. I love her. I will say I am beyond thankful for the Beals. I mean, I think anybody, you know me better than anybody, you know, the people that know me best know that the Beals are my people through and through. So what we did was, okay, so I had the 3 months. I actually think I had 3 months of paid leave. Well, not full paid. I think it's 66 and 2/3. And I'm here in Florida. So we had 12 weeks FMLA, and then I used 4 weeks of PTO. So I had 16 weeks to be with the little. And thankfully, John has his own business, so he was able to, you know, have a lot of flexibility in his schedule too, which was great. Now, my parents and my sister-in-law, Ruth, who is dynamic. We love Ruth. She lives close by. She is like our rock here in Florida. And my parents came, and we had agreed that they would stay for 1 month in the house with us, right? So that we could figure it out, and they were there to support. And I'm so glad they were there. Remind me to tell y'all about the story with my mom bleaching LJ's clothes, and I had a complete moment.
I remember that.
That's the one she won't let me live down. She was like, I got laid out by my daughter. I was like, okay, Mom, I need us to move on, baby. But that's our dynamic. We just talk trash all the time to each other, but out of love, of course. So my mom and dad were here. And for the first month, it was the four of us and Ruth we figured out a routine. What I am thankful for, and Peeve, to your point, and I'm surprised I was this open to it this early, but I remember Ruth saying, you and John need to make sure that you all still date and have time to yourselves, even with the baby. So there were a couple times, I mean, LJ was new. She would come over, sit with him, and say, you and John go grab lunch.
That is a good aunt.
She's a great aunt. And she was like, leave the house. So we left the house. And so early on, I got kind of used to being able to leave LJ with certain people that we felt comfortable doing that with. Mm-hmm. But after that first month, my parents went back to Maryland. And we had agreed on that the rest of our maternity leave or parental leave would give us time to figure out our new dynamic and our new normal as a married couple with the baby. And then when I was scheduled to return to work, which we'll get to, Lord have mercy, when I was scheduled to return to work, my parents would come back to Florida. They ended up staying for a year, which was awesome because the way that our brains worked was that if we were paying for daycare, which is dumb expensive, if we were paying for daycare to send LJ somewhere, it would be cheaper to have my parents come here, and the money that we would spend on daycare, we would spend on like a lease. So we rented a condo like 5 miles down the street from us for a year for them because we're like, it's going to cost us the same or maybe less to have you all here and pay rent than it is to send the child to daycare. And we know that he is spending time with his grandparents. So they came here. We would get LJ ready, drop him off at my parents' condo, and I would come back, work from home because, again, I had him during the pandemic. So I would work from home and then go get him. And so I had my parents here, but they had their sense of identity and independence because they weren't under our roof. That still gave John and me time to figure out parenting. But it also introduced LJ to his grandparents really early. But boy, did my heart hurt when they decided after a year they were going back home. I just knew I got them. I was like, oh, they're going to get to Florida for a year. My mom's going to find her little friends at McDonald's and walk the block. My dad's going to find his happy place. And after a year, they were like, this was wonderful. Okay, so we're going back to Maryland. I was like, you are? Why? Why? James will be okay. Katie, my will be okay. But I think it's the best of both worlds. So they were able to be such a huge part of LJ's growth and development. They remind us that they left right before he started walking. They were like, we did all this prep to get that little joker to walk. And then we went back to Maryland like the next day he started walking.
Oh, he was probably like, I'm going to walk to Maryland. I'm going to go find my grandparents. Thank you very much. Yeah. Where did they go?
He was like, I'm going to find my people. Like, mom and dad, y'all are cool, but grandma and grandpa are the best. But it honestly introduced us early to the idea of us being able to be away from LJ with people that we trusted, like my parents, Ruth, James, Katie, my, like we could be around people that we trusted with him and be okay traveling. So we did start traveling without LJ kind of early for most, what some would consider to be early.
Yeah.
So we're still finding our balance, but we have an awesome support system. Thank you. I'm thankful for y'all.
Your parents come often, not like all the time, but when they do come, they stay for weeks at a time. And they have such an awesome bond with LJ, and they are so confident in grandparenting them, which my mom is also very confident in grandparenting Everett. But, and this is no, I'm not saying this is right or wrong or whatever, but she's the only one in our family, either side, who is confident to parent Everett, and he is 4. It's showing like just, two sides of many sides of what it's like to be a parent in 2023 with one or multiple kids. I don't think that's always going to be the case, fortunately for us. Like, I do think it's going to get better, but it's been tough. It's been really tough. I mean, my mom, bless her soul, will fly 2,000 plus miles coast to coast to watch Everett, even just for 3 nights if we need to go to a wedding or something. And I'm so, so grateful for her. And Everett loves her, and they have a really great bond. And she loves Everett, good, bad, and ugly, which is what it takes, and that's what your parents have done with LJ. Because they've spent so much time with him, they see all of the frustrating baby and toddler stuff, but they also get to experience all the amazing moments, which far, far, far exceed all of those annoying things. And it's a gift, that you were able to give to them, not only that they're giving to you.
Thank you, Peeve. Thank you. I do not take them for granted. I don't take any of you all for granted. And I think at times, I should say, I don't intentionally take people for granted, because I think it's easy to lose sight of the people that you have around you when you're having those moments of frustration or whatever that is. So I don't want to ever take anybody for granted. And at times you may, right? Because you come to expect certain things from people, but it's being intentional. It's like, I don't take that for granted. I don't take the fact that you and I have had this bond for so long, and now we have our little boys and we're figuring out life together a year apart from them both being born. I don't take for granted any of our sister circle friends. Certainly don't take for granted my family, and finding your people is key. It really does take a group of people that love your child, good, bad, and ugly, like you said, that you can trust them with. And that's scary. But it's also exciting when you find that freedom.
I mean, I think what you are talking about is trust for sure, but it's also surrendering. And that I might have mentioned this when we were talking about pregnancy and birthing, but that was something I really had to work very hard at doing, is like just trusting in the process, whatever it is, before he was here, after he's here, and surrendering to basically what John said, like, just keep him alive. He's going to be okay. And anyone can do that. As long as there's someone you trust and you're making a good decision there. Like, anyone can do it. You just have to give them some space, give them trust and confidence. But it is hard. It is really hard. So I actually had 0 paid leave because I work at the time, I worked for the government. That has changed now. I think they have, I'm no longer a federal employee, but now I think they have 12 weeks of paid leave, which is great. We should definitely have a year. Everyone should have a year, no matter where you work, private corporation, a nonprofit organization, government, job, whatever, teacher, everyone should have a year off. And this, obviously, we can look to so many other countries, and they support new mothers so much more than we do here. And I feel like we're beating a dead horse, because this is a topic, fortunately, that, I think we already knew it and we were already talking about it before the pandemic, but the pandemic, blew the top right off that jam, because there was nowhere to hide then. Like, oh, you were juggling all this shit with stable job and support minus the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, social unrest basically was happening at the same time. And now mothers, were literally forced to make these crazy decisions with, do I just drop everything else to make sure my kid survives this pandemic? Because that's when, all of those shoes dropped and mothers were left holding all the fucking bags.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. Did you have any resources in your fourth trimester, like before you returned to work, when you were just in it? Because fortunately, neither one of us had postpartum depression, which is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are now a lot of resources out there for people who do have postpartum depression. And I am so, so grateful that I didn't and that you didn't, because we also wouldn't have been able to navigate our return to work scenarios if we had. We had great support networks in different ways. But I also read the book Crib Sheet, which I think you might have.
You sent that to me.
Did you read it?
Oh, what happened? No, I didn't get to read it.
It's okay. I read it and I probably told you phone call by phone call everything that I had learned.
Yes, you did.
I like that book, and I'm sure there's other resources out there like that, but it showed you all the sides, like with the sleep training and, all these tiny little decisions you have to make day by day, week by week. It's like, okay, if you do it this way, your child's going to survive. If you do it that way, your child's going to survive.
Absolutely. But yeah, I read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I know it seems so cheesy and everybody reads it. Like that's the thing that most people have read. And I was like, I don't know. It's really cliche for me to read this, but I enjoyed reading that book. Like I would get into it. Postpartum, I would say a lot of blogs, a lot of articles, probably one, Steve, that you sent to me. I know Tiff sent me a lot of stuff. So I would read those.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it was a lot of conversation. I will say that's what it was. So those are my primary resources, were people, probably articles and blogs. I didn't get into a lot of books. One thing that I wish I did more of in hindsight, I had such good intentions. A for F for J. I bought a cute little book of journaling.
Oh, girl.
And I thought, Jamie, you are going to memorialize every event of LD. Oh, he lost a tooth? Cute. Write it down. Mm-mm. Oh, he took a first step. Write it down. I had a whole plan. That journal is collecting dust somewhere. I can't even tell you where it is. So that's one thing that I wish I had taken the time to do. Gosh.
Same. My mom even started one for me. She started putting some pictures in it, little things.
Aww.
I probably filled that out once, twice. No idea even where it is now. We've moved twice since then. But what I did do recently, and I will say sporadically, but for this approach, I don't think it matters that it's sporadic. I just got this journal, and it is actually for people just like us. And I have no idea who publishes it, so I'll have to find that and put it in the show notes in case anybody wants this. But it's for people who failed at doing the baby book or memorializing anything, jotting down anything. And it's just I'm grateful for you. All the reasons I'm grateful for you. So you're writing it to your child, and there's no prompts or anything. It's just literal date and then 4 or 5 lines under it. And so whenever it moves you, you can put the date and you can write the little thing, whatever it is. I'll give you an example. Everett now is reading encyclopedias, it feels like, in terms of his vocabulary. So I feel like it went by so fast, all of his cute little words. But now, some things, it'll just drop, he'll say something or something will happen and it'll jog my memory of something he had said when he was littler. He used to say for butterflies, butterfly, fly, fly, butterfly, fly, fly, in his cute little voice, because he had these butterflies over his crib. And so he'd always be butterfly, fly, fly. And so now we see a butterfly and we say it to each other to remind ourselves. But it prompted me to write that memory in there. Or we had we would go over to check the eggs for the chickens next door with our neighbor Jules, who RIP. When he was just little, he would pick up the eggs and go, "It's a dirty one. It's a dirty one." This one's dirty. I know. So just little things like that. I mean, they're not the stuff you're supposed to, oh, your first word or your first tooth or whatever. But it's just things that actual memories that are in here that you still have that you can write out to them.
I love everything about that because there are so many cute things. As you're saying that, I'm visualizing little E, like that blonde, little moppy cute hair and those dimples and saying stuff like that's what I'm thinking of. And I wasn't even there in those moments. So I'd love that. If you can share that resource, Pete, so I can capture some of those moments with LJ, because to your point, he's saying all of these things now that I'm like, that is really cute. We were in the doctor's office again because I feel like we're there every week.
Mm.
They're remodeling. So there was a guy on a ladder, and your nephew is looking up in the hole where the guy is in the ladder. And he's like, hey, get down from there. Be careful. Get down from there. Be careful. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. He is his mother's child for sure.
Aw.
But things like that I would like to capture so that all those cute things that will become a distant memory unless you capture them.
Yeah.
Please share that resource.
I absolutely will. And the good thing is we take pictures every 5 seconds, which I think why people have gotten away from, writing all this shit down. But what I intend to do, haven't done it yet, but I know I will later this summer because I'm going to carve out time to do it, is because you don't have to be in chronological order with this stuff. It's just like things you write down. So I'm going to go back through pictures, and as my memories jog, I'm just going to write stuff down and just like let it flow. I'm going to set aside a couple hours just to kind of like go down the memory lane for the last 4 years. So Jay, I feel like we're a little distant from the 4th trimester. And so it's kind of hard to even remember what we went through. And that's probably on purpose, like evolutionarily. They, just like childbirth, you are hardwired to forget all of the challenges and the pain, the sleeplessness that you went through so that you'll do it again and again and again and again to procreate. But I listened to this podcast yesterday. It's one of my favorite podcasts for parenting and motherhood. It's called the Motherkind podcast. And a recent episode had on Dr. Serena Rosa, who is a postpartum nurse. And she's actually pregnant with her second child now. She's like 6 months pregnant or whenever they recorded her episode. And so all of this was front of mind for her. Of course, that's her career, her profession, but she had been through it once and she's preparing to do it again. And so I really liked how they introed the podcast, the host, because she said, even for moms who are 3, 4 plus years away from their 4th trimester, the episode and everything that they talked about would really bring back memories and resonate with them. And I found that to be really true. And so I wanted to bring up some of the things that were talked about with you because I sure as hell forgot.
I barely remember what I did yesterday, so I can guarantee I don't remember from 3 years ago. So this is accurate.
Yeah. But one of the things she talked about was that, and this is no surprise, we're not sharing anything new here, but in America, we have a different culture around motherhood and that we expect mothers to sort of be an island, or at least families to be an island. We already shared that, you constructed your first year with LJ a little differently with your family support, which I think is amazing and a lot more true to how historically mothers have been supported by communities and by families, like extended families. Mm-hmm. And my experience has been more of the, sadly, like what I would say now is sort of the traditional motherhood experience in America. And that is you try to resume your identity straight away. Right after having a baby, you try to resume all your activities and your productivity levels and all the things. Basically, just return to the hustle as fast as you can. Plus, now you have a second job of caring for this child. And this episode brought up so many factors that I hadn't thought about in a long time, or maybe never even thought about how once you have a baby, your DNA is permanently altered. And so now you're biologically focused on keeping, your little infant that then becomes toddler and so on, happy, healthy, thriving. And so of course you're not going to be able to do all of the other things in the way that you did them before. I don't want to say not as well, because I honestly think you actually have the opportunity to do things even more productively and efficiently because you get better at time management and you get better at prioritizing. But I think what falls to the wayside is us, mothers.
100%. I think we lose ourselves in that. So two things. I think we lose ourselves. I have to remind myself that I was Jamie before I was a mother, that I was Jamie before I was a wife, that I was Jamie before I was auntie, and all of the things, because it's so easy to get lost in all of that. I'm appreciative of a piece of advice that my mom and dad gave to John and me, which was once you have your baby, don't forget to date each other.
Your mom should be a midwife.
She should be. She probably would be. We'll call her after this episode.
I say that because, I've mentioned this birth class that we've taken, before we had Everett. And that was actually like the number one take home message from this birth class.
Ooh.
In addition to like figuring out how to actually have a baby, take care of a baby, all that stuff, take care of the new mom. The woman, the midwife who was leading the course, she said, and that's why it was sort of like this couples therapy too, where you were like staring deep into each other's eyes and talking real talk. She said, you want to believe that the number one priority is your baby. In a lot of ways, just like life or death, obviously it is. But your number one priority still needs to be your partner in addition to yourself. Obviously you got to take care of yourself first, but your partner has to be number one because your child is hopefully going to grow up healthy, happy, and then fledge. And then you're going to be with your partner for a long time, hopefully. And so her point was just like your mom's, like, you don't want to lose that bond, that connection, that relationship, because that's really the core and the foundation.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it with them. It'll be 48 years in November that they've been married. And they're like, yeah, we raised y'all two wild children. Really, me, the wild child, James, the responsible one, of course. But nonetheless, and she's like, focus on your dad and I always dated. They would drop us off and they would go on dates and go out, go to Atlantic City, go play little slot machines, whatever. And we were fine, clearly. So that was in my mind once LJ got here. But the challenge is it's easy to say it. Yes, we will make sure that we date. And yes, we make sure that we remember why we fell in love and all of those things. It's harder to practice it. For me, it was. And it's still, we're trying to find that balance because yes, I want to go on a date. But the other part of me is like, when that baby's over at Auntie Ruth's house or wherever, I want to sleep. I want to get caught up on my sleep. So yeah, that's been part of my fourth trimester. I'm not going to call it struggle, just my realization that yes, John and I need to make sure that we stay grounded. And we do it, I think, a decent job of dating and making sure we focus on each other. But it's challenging even when we're together, we're so focused on LJ. Like my mind is still like, I wonder what LJ's doing. I wonder what he's doing. Is he having fun? Is he sad? Is he crying? Is he blah, 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 blah. So part of my fourth trimester is that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this actually does go back to the American way of raising a family right now in 2023, because the reason we're so exhausted, and I'm right there with you, and you feel like you don't have time for anything else but your kid, your career, keeping all the balls in the air. And then you finally get a minute, you're like, let me just rest. I don't feel like making love or, making meals for the next 3 weeks, is because we don't have the support system. And we didn't from the start. At least most people didn't. I know I'm happy that you had a little bit more help than most do in that first year.
Thank you.
But in these other cultures that still do support mothers in that fourth trimester, people are not going to the grocery store. New mothers are not getting up out of the bed, going to the grocery store or making the meals. They have support even with nighttime stuff with an infant, which I don't know if it's just because of who I am or the way that, our society has created this dynamic or a mix of the two, but I did it all. I mean, even when, Everett was a firstborn and he was an infant and, he was up several times a night feeding, I just said, I'm going to do all the nighttime stuff because Brett has to work because, he didn't get a lot of leave. That's hogwash. Why did I do that? I set myself up from the very beginning to be completely sleep deprived. And now we've made that bed and we have to lay in it because now we've conditioned Everett that mom is around at nighttime, for whatever reason, and through our whole like sleep training journey. And we're in a different stage now than we were obviously when he was an infant. But I wish I could go back in time and I wish that we could do it differently. Like, I wish I could ask for help more. I wish I would have asked for help more. And it's still something, and we've talked about this, that we both struggle with is just, I think it is, a large part due to who we are, that we have been very independent and self-sufficient for various reasons and different reasons with our backgrounds. But it's really hard to ask for help. And I was kind of aware of it during the fourth trimester. I knew that the hardest thing for me at the time was to ask for help, but I still didn't do it. Like, how do you get over the hurdle and actually ask for help? There were days where we did. That was great, but consistently ask for help. I wish it was just a part of our culture, that it wasn't something that you needed to put yourself out there and feel uncomfortable and feel vulnerable and exposed to ask for help, but it is. And so we got to step up to the plate and figure out how to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's twofold, P. I think asking for help is one thing, and I think being open to receiving help is another. Because asking for help is hard, which again, I don't know why. People are there to help. People want to help, and help can look so many different ways. People are like, if you need something, let me know. And I'm like, okay, yeah, absolutely. And then you don't.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is, though, when you finally do say, you know what, it really would be great if you could do blah, then how open are you to receiving it? And so I've been working with that on my therapist. I've just started going to a therapist, I guess, within the last month. We've had a couple sessions. She's amazing. Terry Ferguson in, I guess that's considered like Boynton Beach area in Florida, Black woman-owned practice. She's amazing because one of literally the last session we had was, if you're naturally a giver and you like to give, that's how you feel like love, you want to give, you want to be that person to support everybody. What are you doing to refill your cup? And so who are you allowing to support you? And then when they're willing to support you, what are you doing to receive it? And I'm like, I don't know. Can I talk to you next week about it? Like, let me think about it.
Let me jot down some notes.
Yeah, that's all part of the struggle of this fourth trimester. I'll tell you one thing that I've struggled with, and I'm still struggling with 3 years later, is my weight. Because growing up as an athlete, you're go, 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 right? So between basketball and soccer, like I never focused on my weight. We didn't have to, right? You were like athletes, you just do whatever. Even when I was pregnant, I didn't gain a lot of weight when I was pregnant. I think all in all, I gained 15 pounds or something, 12 to 15 pounds. It wasn't a lot. I was smaller when I delivered. I was breastfeeding. But then once I stopped breastfeeding, it was 6 months, and then transitioned to food for him, I became the garbage disposal. Nothing he did, it was me. I'd make him meals, and then whatever he didn't eat, it's still this way. Then I would eat, right? I'd already eaten. So how do I get into a healthier routine? But celebrate the body that I'm in now, even though I am heavier and the heaviest that I've been, celebrating that this body created that awesome kid, and loving and giving myself grace and loving the thicker skin that I'm in now until I find a routine and pour back into me and put exercise as a part of my routine.
But it's also not just weight. I feel like what you're talking about is just identity in general. Like we had an identity, and you mentioned this, you're Jamie before you became a wife, before you had a baby. Mm-hmm. And I could say that with everything. Like, you asked me what kind of music I like or what hobby I would do in my spare time, and I would probably have a blank stare, mm-hmm. because of like what you already said about that your mind is always focused on LJ. No matter what you're doing, my mind is always focused on Everett. What do I have to do next? And there's tons of conversations out there about the mental load of motherhood, especially in the American society. And so I don't think we need to go into the details there, but it's a real thing. And I think that also plays into us just being so exhausted that it's hard to pour back into yourself, even though we know that that's what we need to do. And also just kind of, it's so important to give ourselves grace on all of these mm-hmm. things, because like you, being an athlete and not really having to worry so much about my physical health before having a baby, I thought I was going to be one of those mothers, not only, working out the whole time I was pregnant, but I was going to just bounce right back. And it took me, I would say, over a year to just physically feel like my body was not going to break if I tried to do something physical. And that was so hard for me to accept and to just say, you know what, my body is giving me information right now. all of this pain, all of these aches, all this soreness is information. Having a baby in whatever way you do is major trauma. In your case, you had major surgery where all your organs were out. You had
Just
a
hanging.
huge incision that then had to heal, plus breastfeeding, and a lot of hormones come with that. And some moms react just fine to those. And some, it's painful. Like I had aches and pains that did not subside until after I stopped breastfeeding. And it wasn't until then where I pinpointed, oh, that's because I was breastfeeding, not because of whatever else I thought it was from. Not to say I wouldn't do it, breastfeed again and just endure those aches and pains if they came up again. But now I understand a little bit better, Yeah, but I couldn't like go for a jog or do any of those things that I thought, oh yeah, I'll just bounce right back. And then, I feel like social media and this like over communicating culture just perpetuates these toxic messages of, how to bounce back, whether it's, with your career or with your body or with your identity straight away. And that's just not realistic. And so I think it's way more healthy to just give yourself grace, surrender to the process, trust in the process that you will get back to Jamie. You will get back to PV. They might look differently because your priorities are different. Your body's different. Your mindset's different. Your heart's different. Your DNA is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process. The whole 4th trimester is not like a start and hard stop. It's a journey.
No, I'm still in it. I didn't even think about the fact that it could be years. You put me onto that. Like, no, the 4th trimester is not like a semester. It's literally years that it takes, women to work through their own trimesters. So I hadn't thought about it that way. I mean, I have to constantly be reminded, and this sounds crazy to some, I'm sure, but to say it's okay to say yes when someone does offers. I'll give an example. John, as sweet as he is, will say, well, sweetie, why don't I do this? Why don't you let me do this? And I'm like, it's fine. I got it. No, it's fine. I'll do it. No, don't worry about it. I'm got it. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah. And then he calls me out on this all the time. And because it's true. He'll come back the next day and whatever it was that he had asked me to do was still sitting there. And he's like, I could have just done that. I'm like, yeah, but no, I got it. And so it was my therapist that helped me recognize this. She said, where else have you heard that? And I'm like, heard what? She's like, this whole, no, I got it. Where else have you heard that? And I was like, I am Maxine.
Mm-hmm.
I am my mom. Because my mom is a giver. And so she's normally like, no, I'm good. She just doesn't want to ask for help. She's like, I got it. Nope, don't worry about it. I love y'all. Y'all go do what you need to do. I got it. And the difference is between my mom and I is that she will actually get it done in the moment she says she's going to get it done. Me, I'll circle back like 5 days later and then have the nerve to get an attitude if you tried to do it before I got to it. But I digress. So that was the therapist that was like, yeah, you talked about cultural norms, how you grew up and the way that you interacted with your mom and what you've been conditioned that you're normal through your mom's behavior is that, go ahead, y'all go ahead and do that and I will do this. As opposed to saying, you know what? Yes, please go ahead and take that outside and put that on the grass. Like that would be great. Thank you. So I'm working on that as well. When John says, hey, do you want me to just go ahead? I'll give you an example and walk the dogs, even a little funky one, instead of me saying, no, it's cool. I'll get to it later. Just yes.
Yes.
That would be awesome, Toots. Thank you. And that's hard.
That is hard. And that's such a good point. And I know we're going to get to this in a future topic about, building the culture of our family. But what you brought up about how, you feel like you're Maxine Beal, I'm Mama Peavy. It's the same thing. And that's the same reason why I am I have to do everything on my own. No one else can do it as well as me, all of that. And for a different reason, I think my mom was a single mom. So there wasn't anyone else to do it besides her and my sister and I. But yeah, it is a generational thing because I even look at my mother-in-law and she is the exact same way. She does everything all the time. And this is again, we're kind of going on a tangent here, but I listened to this other podcast about boundaries. And I think we should talk about this more later because we are kind of getting into boundaries, setting healthy boundaries. But the host of this podcast was saying, no one goes into life in their 30s saying, I'm going to do all this stuff and not let anybody help me. And then in, 30 years, 40 years, I'm going to be filled with resentment and just feel like everybody let me down and nobody pulled their own weight. And so I'm not going to want to do anything for anyone. And I'm going to be, hardened and pissed off all the time. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to be like that. It really made me think like, I need to accept help. I need to let others, including my husband, pull whatever weight they want to, need to, can, because I don't want to be that person. And I feel like in the first 4 years of Everett's life, I really have been doing that, just unconsciously.
Yeah, it took a couple good call outs from John. And I love this about John because he will call me out with the nicest, even toned, thoughtful way, but he is not fearful of calling me out. And vice versa. We all know me. Mine wouldn't be nearly as thoughtful as his. I just kind of, but yeah, it took him to say, like, I ask you, like, can I help? Now, there are times, let me be clear, and I think this is true in most relationships also, that I've said, I don't want to have to ask. Like, there's a time when I want you to be proactive and just say, you know what I should do? Let me go ahead and do blah. And so I have to realize that there's a balance between wanting John to be a proactive partner and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do this because I know that's what Jamie needs right now, versus being reactive to my request. And both are okay. I just needed to reconcile that in my own head. Because there was a part of me, especially when LJ was first born, like, well, I shouldn't have to ask. You should know that this is what I need. I'm about to go pump. I need my nipple balm. I need my water bottle. I need, it's like in my head, I'm like, how long have I been doing this?
Yeah.
Shouldn't have to tell you. And there were times when John was like, well, I don't know everything that you need in that moment. If you ask me, I will gladly do it. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. If I have to ask for it, I'll do it myself. And it's like, okay, Maxine Jr., okay, Jamie. And then have the nerve to get an attitude. So yes, part of this for me has been, it's okay to ask and it's okay to receive. And it's okay to also expect someone to be proactive. All of them are true. They're not mutually exclusive. But you, Jamie, as stubborn as you are and as alpha-ish as you can be, you need to know when to fall back and when to let John be a true partner.
Yes. And that is so empowering to our partners. And I've experienced this more recently, but it makes me reflect on the postpartum period, like the first couple of months, the first year or two, that I could have been doing this the whole time. And I have a long way to go. But like you, I've been focusing on this more recently, kind of out of necessity, because there are time periods in the year where I have to work a lot. I've been traveling a lot more for work lately. And fortunately, Brett has had some career shifts where he is around more. He's available more. And this was part of the reason why we made that kind of family decision for him to get another job, because his previous job really took him away, like physically, emotionally, mentally, a lot. So he would like leave in the morning, be out of sight, out of mind, and he wouldn't come home until later at night. And all the weight was on me. And so now that he's around more, I've just been letting him do a lot more, be a true partner, be a true parent in a lot of respects, which honestly, I should have been doing all the time. Like I feel a little guilt for not empowering him to do that before. Like I almost feel like I was hindering him and making him feel like, kind of like what you said, like I have to just wait in the wings and wait to be told what to do because I don't want to do anything wrong. Or, if you want to do it a certain way or want to wait to a certain time or something, I mean, that's just ridiculous, given the dynamic that we have today, feeling like we're on islands, like we have to empower each other to do all that we can do, to be the best parent we can be, the best spouse we can be. So I want to keep doing more and more of that because I have seen like drastic changes, Jay. Like we still have some weak spots like nighttime. Like I said, we made that bed and we're laying in that. But all in all, like I can leave for a week and a half for work and Brett's got it. I don't need to worry. I sleep like a rock while I'm gone because I just know everything's going to be fine. And I don't know why it took me this long to get here. I'm probably not unique in that. But I sure wish that I would have empowered him and accepted that help a lot earlier than now. But hey, if we have a second one, maybe I'll learn from that, learn from those lessons. But
Yeah. Well, you said it best. Like we both said it through the course of this conversation, which is to give ourselves grace because you're a first time mom. So you don't know what you don't know. I was a first time mom. I don't know what I don't know. And so in our minds as independent alpha women, you think that you need to do it all. So in hindsight, yeah, we can both take a step back and say, well, damn, I could have handled that a lot better, a lot differently. But to give ourselves grace also that we were learning as we were going along. And now we can say, yes, I could have been a more thoughtful partner and while empowering my partner. Or I could have been a more thoughtful daughter while empowering my mom to do whatever. Or like we're very thankful again for the support system that we've built. Navi is family through Ruth, and she's amazing. And she stepped in and helped us with LJ early in the game when we couldn't send him to school because of the pandemic. She was coming to the house every day, and she was a huge part in helping us kind of say, okay, Navi's got it. Okay. Navi's not here. Mom's got it. Okay, I can coach this.
She was like a nanny essentially for a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like she wasn't helping us with meal prep, but she would come to the house, watch LJ while I was in the back working. John was in the office. When he was sleeping, she was helping us get laundry together and stuff. I mean, we were fortunate enough, and I recognize the privilege in that, and I want to honor that we were fortunate enough to be able to have a team that could help support us in our new normal. Mm-hmm. And I do think there are benefits to having children later. You know, there are benefits to having children younger. Like right now, our friends that have had children younger, their kids are in college and they're like, all right, it's time to live. And I'm like, oh Lord, I'm just trying to get this kid to go to sleep at 8:30. And so there are benefits to having them younger. But I think the benefit for us having LJ later in life is that we were more established and then we could create a family to help us through this process. Again, still asking for help. I still felt weird texting at the night, like, can you help us tomorrow? It's like, why? Yeah. I had to get over still getting over my own stuff. But I do want to honor the privilege in that and recognizing that everybody does not have the ability to have someone that they can pay to do this and pay to do that. And so, yeah, that's another part of postpartum for people that are also trying to figure out, like you said, your mom is a single mom. Like, how do you create space to still be a strong parent when you are your own support system?
Yeah. I like how you're framing that mature motherhood, has its advantages.
Mature motherhood. I like that. We are mature mothers.
Yeah.
Depends on who you ask. But from an age perspective, yes. We are mature mothers. Sorry, my mom had me at 30. And back in the day, that was old. And so she said people were like, are you ever going to have a kid? She had James at 26, me at 30, and my dad was 34.
Yep.
So they were considered mature parents.
Yeah, my mom too. She was 36 when she had me. So she had my sister 33, I guess. We're 3.5 years apart, and 36 with me. So when I had Everett at 39, I was like, "Ooh, okay, I can do this." But now I'm like, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Yeah, but I'm really grateful that I happened upon that podcast episode because it really did jog a lot of memories for me.
Me too.
I feel like we forget, glossed over. You're just on to the current juggle, the current hustle and bustle. So I'm glad that brought up some talking points for us. But we should probably wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
If you are in the 4th trimester, I hope you are taking care of yourself and giving yourself grace and asking for and receiving help.
And also exercising your no. I don't know if we hit on that a lot too, which I'm still working on also. So yes, it's okay to say, yes, I want to receive help, but I hope you're also working on that damn no. That no, I cannot do that. No, I cannot be here. I can't be everything to everyone. And so I hope you're exercising your no as well.
Yeah.
Your no and yeses appropriately.
Yep. All right. Well, you all can find us on Instagram at @_is a mother podcast. Please join us there. We would love to hear from you. Let us know if there's a topic that you want us to discuss that we haven't. One of these days, we will have some special guests join us. So it won't just be
That's right.
Jamie and I chit-chatting, but we'll bring some guests in here and there. So share this with anyone you think might benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of our circle. And we look forward to continuing this journey with you all. Peeve, I appreciate you as always.
Love
Another great
you.
conversation. Love you too. And
don't forget, go call your best friend. Thank you so much for listening and being part of our conversation and our inner circle.
Follow us on Instagram, _is a mother podcast. And we look forward to you and your best friends joining us next episode.
Leave a rating on this podcast app. It really helps us get our conversations to more friends out there, more friendship circles, and more women and more mothers. And that's what we're here for, to broaden the conversation, to bring everybody into the circle.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Go call your best friend.